Today, we're gonna take a look at
Resident Evil Survivor.
This game is very easily overlooked due to its spin-off status and the fact that the game changes so much of the established Resident Evil formula, forcing you to go through the game with a first-person perspective. It's a unique way to experience what the game has to offer. However, unique doesn't always mean good. I'll get to that later. The story of the game takes place on an island called Sheena Island. As you'll find out as you progress through the game, the island is just a front for the Umbrella Corporation. The island houses an underground Umbrella research lab. The point of this lab is to research and produce BOWs. You play as a character who survives a helicopter crash, but not without losing his short-term memory.
I don't remember anything. Who am I?
Going through the game, you can pick up various files explaining the story a little more clearly, giving you background on your character and what Umbrella's plans are for the island. I'm not going to go into the spoilery bits of it, but that's a very basic rundown on what's going on. The gameplay for this game is unlike any other in the series up to the point of its release. Like I said before, the game locks you into a first-person perspective. Movement is a little awkward. But in order to shoot, it's standard Resident Evil affair. You hold the R1 button and you press X, nothing out of the ordinary. But what's different about this game is that you have to aim by using the crosshair that appears when you press R1. Moving around the crosshair with the controller's D-pad is really jerky. When moving it around with the analog stick, if you're using a DualShock controller, it's way too quick, making it extremely difficult to attack fast-moving enemies such as these dogs or lickers. I've checked the options up and down, and there is no way to change the sensitivity of the crosshair's movement either for the D-pad or the analog stick. It screams for light gun support. I know that you can use the Namco Gun Con in the European and Japanese release, but the support was dropped for the North American version, which is the one that I have. Another thing that sets this game apart from others in the series is the fact that there is no way to save during the game. The only way that you can save is after completion, but thankfully the game isn't terribly long, clocking in at around 2 or 2.5 hours. In what seems to be an attempt to increase replay value, this game features splitting paths, first seen in Resident Evil 3. Going through any of these different paths changes nothing about the story, instead just changing your experience from playthrough to playthrough. An example of this is the very first room you come to. In this room, you kill your very first zombie, and this zombie drops a key. Now this key can be used for any of these 3 doors, but once you go into one, you can't go into any other ones. But like I said before, the story doesn't change depending on which path you take, so all of these places eventually lead to the same place. Now for what kind of game this is, there had to be some compromises. One of which was there's no quick turn. In its place was this button that snapped you to the nearest interactable, whether that be an item, an enemy, or a door you could open. Also, to support this kind of gameplay, they let you have unlimited ammo for your pistols. Everything else, such as the shotgun or the magnum, they have their own ammo. Having unlimited ammo for your pistols is a good thing too. With the kind of aiming you're doing, you miss a lot of shots. I guess the game's way of trying to help out with this problem is this weird snapping thing that happens. Whenever you shoot a zombie's limb or something like that, it immediately snaps to the center mass. And everybody knows that headshots do more damage on just about everything, and this game is no different. However, because of the snapping feature, I found it way easier to just take the fastest shooting handgun and then shoot center mass until the thing is dead. Taking time to try to stop and aim for the creature's head, it's counterintuitive in this situation. The user interface could use some work too. This is the actual speed of the fastest you can move while you're going through your inventory. And if you switch weapons often, this is the worst because it takes so long to switch weapons. Another thing that I found odd about this game is that you don't need to press a button to interact with anything. You just walk up to it and it happens automatically. This is different from just about every Resident Evil game out there. I see this as an attempt to try to stop players from rubbing their faces up against a wall and trying to tap a button at the same time. But for the problem that it tries to fix, it creates one more. Because of an old habit, I still tap the X button when I'm looking for something. And this automatically gets rid of the description on whatever you're looking at. So I found myself banging my head against the wall trying to read the description again. I'm getting too nitpicky, I better bring this to a close. Plagued with bad controls, subpar graphics even for the time, and the occasional translation error, this is a very hard game to recommend to the average person. But if you're a fan of the Resident Evil series, I think you should at least give it a shot. But don't expect too much of a tie-in to any of the other Resident Evil games. The connections there are very loose. At most you find a file referencing the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3. But then there's this really out of place thing that tries to tie it into the other games even more.
That's right! At the request of my friend, Leon S. Kennedy, I came here to investigate.
But it's so quick and insignificant that it feels like an afterthought. All in all, it's a bad game by just about anybody's standards. But I say give it a shot if you can find it for really cheap. I got this copy of mine at a thrift store for $1.50, and I was not going to spend any more than that on this game. But anyway, those are my opinions on it. Like, subscribe, do all that other stuff, and I hope I see you for my next video.